had a lot of stuff going on. So we made a decision at Grant to have Mr. Baca run SES1 and SES2. SES1 used to be my constituent group. I used to meet with them, develop the IPs together, do the IEPs together. But at this point, none of these people I'm involved with at all. The only time I may go to one of their IEPs is if there's a cross-cat kid or where the kid has been considered the one cross-cat class. I don't meet with them. I don't develop any paperwork with
So
them.
for whom do they vote? Where does their vote come?
That's his program, so I can't answer.
Well,
that.
and I think that that's the decision needed. Because
Oh,
I mean, just like, so Ms. Covert, who teaches math
Mhm.
and has a in your math meeting.
Yes.
So she would vote for you. I mean, that would be, I mean, that's part of her constituent group. But also,
Okay.
I feel like, once again, we need to look at the bylaws and we need to have a voting person on instructional council for our SES program.
I don't want to speak for all of SIP 1 or SIP 2. I'm only speaking for myself, but I feel like sometimes it is slightly problematic that we are not all meeting together. I feel like as a special education program, it's important for us to kind of know what's going on in the entire school, because we're really trying to be part of the entire school. Like, they want us to be like our kids. We would like our kids to be part of houses. We would like our kids to be part of everything else. I think that it is important for us to be, coming together, attending those meetings together, being able to vote together, having those voices heard throughout the entire special education department, and not keeping it like, well, you're the SES group and we're the special ed group. Like, we are all the special education group. That's my personal opinion. I feel like it makes the most sense for us to all be.
Yeah, I respond.
Well, let's give her the opportunity to finish her thought.
Yeah, I can follow up if I need to.
Okay, so Ms. Covert, I appreciate what you're saying. However, I have never been approached by any of you about joining any of my meetings. As a matter of fact, I've been told I'm banned from that building, that I don't even have entrance to that building. And I feel like it's just highly problematic that at the time of the election, you're feeling this way now, when none of you have ever approached me or Ms. Boersma about this issue.
IC meeting, I actually invited you to come and have a conversation with us.
You never invited me personally.
I did. I said, you were upset that you weren't going to get to talk about the schedule. I said, our meeting about the school tomorrow, if you would like to come join SES and discuss it with us. And you said, no, thank you.
I'm so sorry you felt that way.
All right, I am going to let you guys know that we are on a 5-minute limit at this point. Go ahead.
So I'm Barbara Brandon, that's 2 social worker. And I also feel like, the same as Ms. Covert, like I would really, I'm used to being a part of the school, and I don't feel like I am as much a part of the school as I would like to be. I feel like in our program, our goal is to get the kids out of the most restrictive environment that we have into more general ed or cross-cap situation. And so we do regularly, that's our goal is when the kids' behavior becomes more stable, then we call for an IEP, and we do meet with Ms. Gardner.
You have never met with me.
In an IEP I have.
One time I was in an IEP.
Twice, Michael Baldwin.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop this. This is not, I know, but this is not a character between the two. That's the thing that and I'm just gonna say this. This is about the position. This is not about a personality or personality, and this is what this is turning into, and it needs to not. Okay, because this is about the position. And we have yet to, anyone in this meeting, talk about what the position is or what the role is of the position. And it's really important that we understand that this is not just this position is a lot more than a department head. And I hate to say that. I mean, department heads are great, but the head special ed teacher is a lot more than just a department head. And we need to look at what is the position, who truly has, not about who's attended IEPs or things along those lines. Who do people work with? And that is the difference. I agree that there is a divide, but that is more than just this position. That is something that we as a school need to work on. This position is not gonna fix the divide.
Could I finish
Yes.
this really quickly? So when I first came to Grant last year, this is my second year here, I started attending the special ed after school meetings, but I was told that that wasn't appropriate, that I was not supposed to. And so, and then, so, yeah, I didn't.
So my question is like, so I got a chance to substitute for the drama teacher. And she had 2 sets kids in that class. So it was a regular elective at Grant Middle School. Okay, how did those 2 sets kids get into drama?
Their IEP.
Who did the IEP?
That's
Okay, okay. That was my question.
the sex department did, yeah.
So we knew at Grant Middle
Yes.
School that these 2 sets kids would
Yes.
be coming into electives.
Yes,
And that's why they have to have that meeting.
yes.
Okay. So do they fall under the special ed umbrella or do they, okay.
Well, but
Then this, from there though, from the drama class, Miss Maeda has to pay attention to the IEP, right? And all she knows is that they're special ed, right? And that, okay.
No, she
No, she knows that they're-
She knows
they're
that
in
they're
program.
access.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they're in program.
It's a process, okay.
So are we looking at?
So let's do Dina go. Go ahead, Dina.
I have a question. Because Mr. Baca is not of the bargaining unit, he is an administrator. The CES 1 and 2 people do not have any opportunity to vote for someone on the same level playing field as everybody else in this room.
And I think that that kind of summarizes one of the issues that I'm seeing here. As the IC chair, one of the issues that I see is that there are several staff members who are not being represented in instructional council. And so that's kind of where we're at, is trying to come up with a solution to this particular problem. What needs to happen here? Is this an extension of the special education department, or is this legitimately a new department that needs to be joining the instructional council?
And Will, going back to your question, your 2 goals today were that we needed to define the constituencies. But I think it's great that you all are thinking ahead about having CES 1 and 2 have a position at this table. Is that all that a elected department chairperson does, is have a seat at this table?
No, that's not.
Or is it 2 separate things? One is a vote, if we're constituencies vote. But then, so they vote on department chair. Does that immediately put somebody at this table?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we square that we have, just by eyeballing, you're about half and half right now. I gotta tell you, the people who are over here are about half, and you all at this table are about half.
Some of us are EAs though.
Okay,
And some of
thank
our-
you for letting me know.
Yeah,
Some of our IC members are not here.
yeah, we have a few sets, and we have quite a few. I mean, there's probably about, I mean, how many sets 1, sets 2 staff teachers are there? 6. And we have, and we have teachers, crosspat, general ed, there's about 20.
The optics aren't good.
So Dina, what I see is that, like Mrs. Garcia was saying, if they teach the category, such as one teaches special ed, social studies, he has a vote in the social studies department on their special ed.
Yeah.
And our math teachers, we have 2 crosscut math teacher, we have a crosscut science teacher, ELA, and of course, no electives. But those should be voting in both departments. Where it's been dropped, and this was 6 years or more ago, when you own, is having that representation at the IC of the CES, but we're looking at crosscut there too. Who teaches just language arts? Who teaches just math in the CES department? I think it's very different because they sometimes teach math, science, social studies, language arts. So that's a little different.
But that falls into electives too, because in one classroom I did have SES kids, special ed kids, general ed kids, everything.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that we have a vote in special ed, because we are general ed teachers.
And it is stated in even this. I'm just saying, it is so bad. We're still
Yeah,
educating.
we have to, but it's not talking about the teacher going forward.
And that's probably why when we do have votes, we probably always go through grade level. Right?
Yeah.
So there's no confusion, right?
Yeah. But then all elected.
But then he says it's still.
And electives at that time.
Yeah.
And so which goes back to the original, if we're defining constituents, that's why I think it should be who teaches that content. But it was my understanding that that's what we were doing today. So that's why I keep going back to it. If we are defining what a constituent is, in my opinion, it should be who teaches the content.
And to clarify and maybe piggyback off of that, and I know that this is going over, but it is something that is important that I think needs to be discussed. Earlier, Kathy, you had said that Mr. Melendez would be a good example of this because he teaches special education and he also teaches social studies. But when it comes time for our department meetings, I am under the impression, correct, that you attend the special ed department. Is that correct? That's correct. So I would assume then that you would get a vote, you would be a constituent of the special ed department, but that you would not necessarily vote for social studies. As a special ed teacher, is it correct for me to understand that you could potentially teach any content area?
No, you have to be endorsed in the subject, even if you're special ed.
Okay, then my apologies. I was unclear on that. Thank you.
So do you know what is the negotiated agreement of us?
Well, it's up to the instructional council how you want to structure it. A lot of sites do a split thing where if they're represented in two different places, they vote in both. If there's three, they get a third of a vote. You know, there are lots of different ways that ICs can set their protocols for those things. So it truly is up to all of you. I think what bothers me personally is that I don't know that everyone at this site has a voice. And that's worrisome to me because it's worrisome for the entire culture of your building, the culture of your staff. From my understanding, we've got people who are already isolated just by physical. And so then once they have an opportunity, then not to even have a voice in there, then it's another barrier to being a part of this entire group. And that's worrisome. But there are lots of different ways to do it.
So there's no one standard way for every school to have to do the
No.
same thing.
No.
So we as Grant being a unique place with both assessment and assessment.
You're
So
okay.
we need to determine how we're taking it. So, Where the suggestion was less from, just from the IC members? Or do we have to
you
go
will-
out to the people?
Well, yes, you should do that. And then bring those voices back. And then you need to come to consensus. This can't just be an up or down vote. Because you'll have winners and losers if it's an up or down vote. I don't know how you square, and I think that's one of the big issues. I don't know how you square a good portion of your staff being supervised by an administrator, therefore cutting off their voice into this space. And I know you're gonna work together to get a voice on IC. But I think this is beyond that, because I think what happened, just simply because of the timing of this and all of that, it became a big kerfuffle. And the reality is, it's because we haven't paid attention to those bylaws over time. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to go back and make sure that everybody on this campus knows that they have a represented voice. That you can't know what to expect. I'm thinking about, they just redrew boundaries for school board election districts. And, it just kind of feels like some of the similar things happened. Your boundaries changed, but you didn't keep up with the, yeah. So something for IC to tackle. There's not any huge rush. We've got some schools that don't make final decisions until they return in July 31 now. So, keep that in mind. But I think this is a great first step. That it's not gonna be easy. You're gonna have to really keep focused on the position. Anytime we talk about budget and those budget decisions come to this table, no matter what IC table it is across this district, we keep the focus on the position. It may be your best buddy who's going to get cut, but we got to talk about the position and what makes the most sense for how we support our kids. So keep those things in mind as you tread this ground.
But
I guess that you could forgive me if I'm going off on the wrong thing here, but I feel like the SES constituency, I feel like the SES group is probably its own constituency. I have seen Kelly once this year for an IEP, maybe, and it was very brief. And if it's just me, I would much rather be hey, why didn't SES just in general have a seat at the IC where all of our needs are represented? Because I think if we're going to head ourselves into the special ed realm, that's cutting off a chunk of our stuff. Because we're special ed, but we're our own beast. We're different. And that's not I don't know. I don't think all of special ed's problems are going to just wrap really nicely into the SES box. So, I think, me personally, again, this is not everybody else's opinion or anything, but I would much rather just have a voting seat at the table than handing it off to another person who may or may not be working with us ever, if that makes sense. I think all of our views can be represented much better in that way rather than pushing ourselves into another department that a lot of us don't see. So.
And so to kind of bring this back home, I know that we've had this open for discussion for quite a while. We've exceeded the 20-minute limit that I wanted, but like I said, I know that there was a lot of heated discussion. So then as simply as I can put it in my mind, the question becomes, how will we represent SES 1 and SES 2 in the instructional council? And that is what I'm looking for ideas on today.
I think two ways that we can do it. I think number one, I think very strongly that it's exactly what Miles said, that we need to add to our bylaws a voted upon person that will represent the SES department or group here. I also feel like, just like Andrea was saying, as far as content, that our SES teachers do teach and they have attended the content meetings, that they can vote for example, I think you teach majority of the math, correct? Yes. Okay. Who teaches social studies? So Taylor could vote for the social studies department, you know, because I think that is, because I know that the content wise, like I know Ms. Garcia shares what the social studies department is doing with Mr. Taylor, or you have in the past, when you got the 7th grade stuff, at least a year ago, you were getting stuff for him, for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be, like, the content wise would be a good constituent group at this point. But I do very much agree with Mr. Taylor that they need that our SES one, that this biggest problem that we have is that we do not have a voice from SES 1 and SES 2 on our, and I do not feel like, personally, I think that having that part of our bylaws moving forward would be a very, very good thing to do. And we could have an election within, you know, I mean, and we could pay him a stipend too. I mean, I have, you know, we can make that as a department chair stipend. So that's my solution.
Okay.
Could we make it unique enough that they know when their special education groups meet, not at the same time, content? So,
And that's what we've done. We have done that in the past where it was like 1 month, they would go to social studies or the content, and 1 month it would be with their special ed department. We have done that in the past. This year, I don't think we have as much, but in the past, we definitely did do that.
Anytime I get a request from the department head that they want a special education teacher there,
I know.
I send them.
Well, for example, the one tomorrow, they're gonna go to to the contest. So that, well, just because I think it's end of the year. So.
Okay, so the one thing that I do want to touch on, and I apologize, maybe I'm kind of beating my head up against the wall on this one. I am still a little bit confused as to the dual constituency. I'm confused on the dual constituency because in the past, our voting procedures have kind of been that you get 1 vote for department head. And that's where I'm a little confused. So can somebody clue me in, clarify who's getting 2 votes for grade level and for special ed, and who is not getting 2 votes?
For grade level or department?
I apologize, for department and for special ed versus who's only getting a vote for department. Go ahead.
So I think that, as far as I remember it, when it came to voting, especially where we only did the 1 vote, is when it came to voting for example, our schedule that we just voted for. If we had taken that back to grade levels, we would have gone to grade levels, not departments, because we did not want people to have more than 1 vote that way. But as far as constituency groups that I have remembered, people got to vote for if they taught science and they were special ed, then they got to vote for both. Because I don't think that we can, and maybe I'm right. But as far as I don't think that as far as the voting for department chairs, does that make sense? The same thing when we do grade level. If somebody teaches 8th grade and 7th grade, they should be able to vote for both grade levels. And as far as I know, that's something we've done in the past.
Can we ask the constituent or
Yeah, what have you voted for in the past? Aminga or Lonnie?
Well, I've never voted for a head teacher. So,
Yeah,
so
you're
last
good.
year I did vote for it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think,
did you vote for social studies only?
No, I don't also.
yeah, I think we've always done it that way where they vote for both.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
in all the years that we've been here, there were times when I had 3 votes.
Yes, because it's for 3 different positions, so it's not, so it's for where the voting gets sticky is when we have like an actual like thing at IC where we're trying to like decide and kind of a consensus or do a vote. That's where we always say, or Bill always says, it's going back to grade levels only and grade levels bring it back, or it's going to departments only and departments bring it back.
Okay, so then our question is, we have defined what a constituent is. And it's my understanding that a constituent is who teaches the content, but who also follows under the umbrella. Am I wrong in saying that? Or am I correct? There could be people with dual constituents.
Yes.
Right, sometimes there are three constituents. Yeah. So then, the big question is whether or not, based on the fact that it's not clearly stated in the bylaws, but it's going to be. Do we need to say, because we're voting for 2023-2024 school year, if the bylaws are going to be changed for the 2023-2024 school year, therefore, should we accept that the CES program, since they're going to have a person on IC for the 2023-2024 school year, should they then get the dual vote?
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
I think I am.
Well, so, and I think, and this,
I am.
well, and this is where I was trying to say, and I'll say, I think it's really, because I think the head special ed position is very different than department chair. Because I think that you really need to look at what the position is. And I think that that's why even in the negotiated agreement, the special ed department head is separated from like the department heads. Because I think the position is very different.
So then in the bylaws, it's probably going to say that.
Yeah, it's very different. And I think we make the mistake of kind of mixing them all together, but they're two different positions. I mean, a good example, they're just very different because Kelly Gardner or whoever is in that position they're not a full release. Does that make sense? I mean, they're taking one of our FTEs for that position. We don't get, so really all we're voting on is that $2,000 stipend, that $2,600 stipend, because it's not a full relief position. Does that make sense? But
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
however you're going to write it in the bylaws
Yeah.
for the 2023-2024 school year, that's how we vote.
Yeah.
So do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I feel like we're making it way more confusing than we have to.
Yes. Yes.
That's why I was trying to put out their motion.
So, okay, if she puts that as an emotion, we need to act on it.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the table. And it is up for discussion before I call it for a vote. So the motion, as I heard it, was that we would be creating a position on IC for SES 1 and SES 2. And the follow-up part to that would be that they would also be,
They're going to have their dual vote, like you said, they would have.
they would have
They
dual
follow under
constituency for
The
them.
content and the umbrella.
Okay,
Yeah.
Clemson's and for their SCS.
Yeah, because we just said that in the bylaws.
so they can vote for math and
They're represented.
their representative.
But they don't have, I'm not their representative.
Well, no, so that's not what she's saying. She's saying assess 1, assess 2 representative, but then if they teach math, they get a math vote. Or if they teach social studies, they get a social studies vote. Yeah.
So then the same would be true for the special ed in our building. Your, does it Mayberry?
Yeah, so Mayberry Sark would get a math vote
Yeah.
and then a special ed vote. Yeah, does that make sense?
Like
Yes.
upstairs special event.
Yeah.
Downstairs,
Yes.
like there's two different
Yes.
positions.
Yeah. The cross cat then different.
And then that will solve having a voice of the best program.
Yes.
So let's try a couple more. I heard somebody say Mayberry Stark would be math and STEM.
Cross cat.
And,
Lassie would be good.
okay, so let's just be clear about where we're headed with this. So you told me Lionel Melendez would be
Social studies and special ed.
social studies and STEM. Okay, all right. Are we making sense?
Yeah. To me, enough.
Okay, but for this particular, yeah, we're not going to this particular. Okay,
Bylaws should say just for department heads.
okay.
I'm looking for any more discussion on the motion that is on the table. Is there any discussion that needs to be had before I call this for a vote?
I'll second that motion.
Hearing no more discussion, I think we're ready to take this to a vote. Is that correct?
Is it a vote or is it consensus?
We'll call for consensus. All in favor of approving the motion as it stands? Give me an eye.
Aye.
All opposed? Give me an A. Then, the motion is approved and SES 1 and SES 2 will have a represented member on IC, and they will have a vote for dual constituency for department head and for their content.
Is that right?
So.
But
they'll
not
have-
my department head.
So assess.
No,
no,
assess department.
assess department
Or
head.
depends voice on the.
All right. So I believe that we have defined constituency, but there is one final thing that we need to do before we move on, because everything that we've done for the voting procedures needs to now be thrown out and we must start again. So in regards to voting, when we talk about voting procedures, the negotiated agreement, as I understand it and as I was directed, we basically have two options when it comes to voting. When it comes to voting, this is what we can do. As a department, we can run a vote, and I am happy to facilitate that vote. Or the other option is that we can come up with nominees and turn them over to administration to be chosen. These are the two different voting procedures that are outlined through the negotiated agreement. My question is, as an IC, how would you like our voting procedures to look for this election?
More voices heard, so the first option. That's mine. Do I need to make a motion? Yeah. I would like to make a motion that Grants Instructional Council votes on everyone's voice being heard that teaches that content, you know, whatever. But not the administration. I don't want administration to pick.
It's not the council, it's the department members.
Whatever one that doesn't allow admin to pick, that's what I don't know. That's right. So I don't know.
It's just the selection only.
Right. However you said the first.
Go ahead.
I'm seconding.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this. What you are saying is that for our voting procedures, you would like each department to have a vote,
Yes.
not to give a list of nominees to be decided by administration.
Okay, yes.
All right, that has been a motion. It has been seconded. I am opening it up for discussion. Go ahead.
I would like to have you tell us what are the specific departments right now, just to make sure that everybody knows.
All right. Here we go. I think. So right now, what I am doing is I am pulling up the ballot that I had sent out earlier because to my knowledge, this ballot needs to be tweaked. It needs to be changed. I really wish that I could share this with you guys up on the big screen, but for whatever reason, my remote's not working. So here we go. On the voting ballot that I have given out previously, many of you have seen this. It starts by asking for your email. This is simply for me to make sure that you are voting in the correct department. I don't want myself to decide that I'm going to go rogue and vote for math when I have no stake in that. So that's the first thing. It must be understood that that is a confidentiality thing. I do this and I am the only one who sees this if I am the one who is running this election. If somebody else would like to run this election, I would be super happy with that. No one? Just kidding. It's going to be me.
By the way, for those people that don't know this, the IC facilitator does vote. That's fine. He has that authority.
All right. So the first question asks, and I think that this kind of defines constituency. The first question on this document says, which department are you a part of? We have language arts. We have math. We have science. We have social studies. We have electives. We have special education. And now we will have SES 1 and 2. So that gives us 7 constituency groups. Then, based on your response to the question, which department are you a part of? It will take you to a form that you will fill in that will have the names of the people who are interested in running for these positions. So, we are dealing with 7 department elections. Does that clarify?
So if they are voting for 2, then they would do another one.
Yes.
Yeah.
She did have a good question. She
Yeah.
wanted to know what social workers start as well.
We have one that serves CrossCat and SES1, which I've included for my constituency. And then we have one that sees SES2 students only, so I don't share any.
And then which we've always done is the SLP, we'll get to vote in both. That makes sense.
Yeah.
They have both OT and they're both.
Which, I want to interrupt for you, Mr. Ross.
Okay, well, I was clarifying because we do have a motion on the table and that was asked to be clarified. So those 7 groups would then come up with their nominations. They will send that to me if they are interested in running for that position, and then I will put their names on the ballot. You guys have seen what my form looks like. It'll look very similar. The only difference will be there will be a new department that is added on there for SES2 and SES1. Does that ever happen? Do you guys go 2 and then 1 first?
The way you're saying it makes me think that they're gonna have one for each.
No.
We're just having one to cover their whole.
Yes.
That was what we had voted on previously, correct? Is that it is one group for both SES programs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so does that clarify what was being asked? Are we ready to take it to a vote? Is there any more discussion? So one more time, what we are voting on right now is the voting procedure for the upcoming election, that it'll be done through Google Form. I will be running it. It'll be very similar to what we've done, but we're starting over with 1 extra group added on there. Okay, so that is what we are voting on.
Can we do this to show of hands, the IC and the people, we have department chair online,
Okay,
who will vote by
So-
saying yes or no.
it has been asked that instead of coming to a consensus that we do this with a show of hands with a vote, and I am fine with that. So voting members of the IC, if you are in favor of this motion that we do the vote through the electronic ballot and I will facilitate, please raise your hand now. All right.
And Lisa,
Thank you. If you are not interested in that, raise your hand. Wanted to make sure. I don't get a vote anyway. Doesn't matter. Okay, then we have accomplished what we have set out to do today. We have met the two things. I am calling this meeting adjourned.
Are there those of you that would like to see the two charts?
The little blue triangle chairs, if you guys would just leave them over here, I'm going to be taking those over to another classroom. Thank you guys so much.